This is actually the first sketch or drawing that I did of a Walking Dead character, and it's a sketch of Norman Reedus, who plays Daryl Dixon on AMC's The Walking Dead. Hope you like it, Nation. The Walking Dead, Issue 11. Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, and expected probably at this point, am Jim, here to bring you another review on the grotesque and grisly, mind-bending tale of The Walking Dead. I just real quick here wanted to show off some of my swag. Got myself a nice Walking Dead comic book t-shirt. It's kind of a, I got it from the Comic-Con this past weekend, and thought it was pretty cool because it's actually not the not one based off the TV show, but actually the comic. And the back of it is written out like a tour shirt. If you've ever been to a concert and you got one of the tour shirts, and there's all the different locations that they've been to, starting from the hospital that Rick woke up in, and a bunch of locations I don't even know about yet because I have not read ahead. So without further ado, though, let's get into issue 11. The last issue, although it was a very long-winded review, I did forget a couple of quick things, and I'll go over those very, very quickly here. And Glenn and Maggie, one of Hershel's daughters, basically had a little exchange and more or less decided that they were going to hook up and have some regular sex, just because of lack of options in the world. That was something they decided to do. Also, Tyrese went and spoke with his daughter Julie and her boyfriend Chris, and if you remember, he kind of had caught them, mid-act of about to get funky right before they, had to narrowly escape that Wilshire Estates from a few chapters ago, a few issues ago. So he basically has a conversation with them and says, listen, enough of this bullshit. We can't be worrying about you getting pregnant. Look at what Lori and Rick already have on their hands with that nonsense. So, be level-headed and stop the shit. And as he walks away, Chris, the little punk, the boyfriend, says something about, and we got to make our move, and and we're in love, and she says not yet. So they've got some kind of devious plan, coming that's about to hatch. And the reason I had to mention that is because some of it comes to fruition in this chapter. So we'll dive right into this chapter. This one moved a little bit quicker, I would say. The last chapter left us kind of hanging with Hershel and Rick talking, and Rick asking if they could sleep in the barn instead of the RV, because Hershel has this big property, this big farm and a barn. And Hershel said, oh, you don't want to go in there. That's where we keep our dead ones. And Rick was like, what? And that's how the chapter ended, So this one picks up right where it left off, the last one left off. And Hershel just says, the ones that have been bitten, the ones that, rise back up and are walking around. So this guy's got, walkers or zombies in the barn. And Rick starts an exchange with Hershel that winds up going on for several pages. And basically it's, it's just them playing both sides of the devil's advocate. Rick is saying, hey, listen, we shoot him in the head. That's how we get rid of him. That's how we solve the problem. Hershel basically looks at it as like it's murder because he says, listen, nobody knows about these things yet. We don't know if they're, if it's just like a chemical warfare thing, if it's a disease that can be cured. We don't know if they can be brought back, And Rick's like, listen, you said yourself, your son's, and Hershel says his son is one of them that's in the barn, His oldest son had gotten, bit while he was putting up this fence around the property to protect them and died. And so you said yourself you saw your son die. That's not him that comes back. So Hershel is, fuck you and this, and they get into a real heated argument because Rick's like, we got to go in there and shoot every last one of them. And Hershel says that I think he says there's 14 of them in there, so there's a decent amount, but don't worry, they're secured, and it's mostly just, neighbors and friends and stuff like that, people that wandered on the property, or zombies that wandered onto the property. So finally Tyrese comes and breaks it up and, basically says, listen, we're guests here, it's not our place, let's just back off, okay, Rick, So they wind up doing that. They back off, and later on that night, everybody's crammed in the RV, and Rick goes outside and decides to talk to Alan. And if you remember, he's the one that's just a little bit messed up in the head. His wife got bit. He's got the twins, but he's just reserved now, and just he's in another place. And Rick talks to him a little bit, and basically says, what Andrew was trying to say to him, but he does it in a more subtle way. He says, listen, you really gotta think about your kids, man. I mean, I understand that you're mourning the loss of your wife, but these kids really need you. And he says, yeah, I understand, Rick, but you don't understand. I mean, the thoughts of me wanting to just end my life and probably to end theirs too, because that's how he makes it sound, are overwhelming. And Rick basically just tries to console him and tell him, it's going to be okay. So The next morning, though, Rick goes and after he gets a good night's sleep, him and Lori and Carl have been allowed to sleep in the house, mainly probably because Lori's pregnant and Carl, of course, had been shot and is recovering. He goes and talks with Hershel, though, and he says, hey, listen, I'm really sorry. I understand that it's your call. It's your, way of doing things. I'm just really uptight after, my son being shot. And Hershel says, hey, listen, that's, it's fine. Don't worry, I didn't take any offense. He seems like a good old country fella, and he says, listen, I didn't take any offense, So Rick says, what we are doing, though, is I'm doing some target practice later on, just to kind of get everybody up to speed. Everybody, at least in our crew, has been carrying a gun, or we're going to carry a gun. And just wanted to know if you or any of your kids, or basically any of the folks that are with you, would like to come. And he says, well, maybe Maggie and Arnold and Lacey, his 3 oldest kids. And he says, but the younger ones, I don't want, I don't think that they really need to deal with that yet. And maybe you want to ask Patricia, and that's Otis, the guy who accidentally shot Carl. That's his girlfriend or wife. He says, I think she'd like to learn how to protect herself so she doesn't have to be so reliant upon Otis. So Rick says, okay, great, whatever, we'll round him up later on. Tyrese goes and talks with his daughter, Julie, and Chris, and her boyfriend, Chris, and basically says, hey, listen, we're going to, practice. You got to have some respect, blah, blah, blah. And they basically kind of just, blow him off again, and you can tell there's something going on. There's something stirring. The pot's stirring with them. There's some kind of plan brewing. They wind up going out, and everybody's out at target practice, and we can see Maggie and Glenn kind of hanging out, getting close because they've been bumping uglies. And she basically had said in the last chapter, she's just like, hey, I'll fuck you if you want, and that's how she said it. And he's like, what, really? She goes, well, yeah, like you said, our options are slim. I'll fuck you if that's what you're aiming to do. So they've obviously been been doing the mambo over there with each other, and so at target practice, they're shooting a little bit, and all of a sudden Hershel comes running, and he's like, whoa, wait, and this is after there's a quick exchange too between Tyrese and that little punk ass Chris, his daughter's boyfriend. He kind of says something smart ass to Tyrese about, yeah, we know how to handle it, or this and that, and or we have respect for him, or whatever with the gun situation. And Tyrese goes and pulls out his pistol and goes, yeah, I hope so. And he just, he nails a can from like 50 yards out, and basically just kind of looks at this punk and gives him like the fatherly, the stare, yeah, don't fuck with me, boy. And so Hershel comes running, no, you can't shoot at the Thompsons. That's right behind those trees is the Thompsons' house, and we don't want their house getting all messed up. And Rick's like, what are you talking about? Are the Thompsons in your barn? Are they? And he's, basically trying to say, like, listen, don't worry about bullet holes in the side of somebody's house. And Hershel's just like, I don't want them getting their house all shot up. You can't shoot that way. Right as this exchange is going on, all of a sudden a walker just kind of comes ambling in from over the other side of the fence, and and Rick's like, here, I got him, I can get it. I think Tyrese pulls his gun. He's like, I can get it from here. And Hershel says, no, please. There's only one. Let me wrangle him up and put him in the barn. So he comes, he gets Rick to distract him, and then he gets up behind this thing and he kind of grabs it by the back of its head so it can't bite him, because these things are only when they scratch or they bite you, that's the only way they can infect you, right? So if you can disable that part, you're fine. So he basically goes and kind of puts him in like a full Nelson, and or a half Nelson, whatever that is, the wrestling move's called, and pretty much drags him off to the barn. And then he goes and calls his 2 oldest, Lacey and Arnold, his 2 oldest kids, and say, you guys got to help me out. You guys go around back and distract the others, because remember there's 14 or 15 of them in there, and he's going to open up the barn and pop this one in, right? Well, as he goes to open up the barn, 1 or 2 of them must have been pressing up against the door, or maybe heard him coming, or whatever the case is, because he falls and stumbles backwards, and the walker stumbles back with him. The doors come flying open to the barn, and everybody's like, oh, shit, right? Rick's still, 100 yards away, 100 feet away. His 2 kids are right there, Lacey and Arnold. Maggie also comes running in and trying to get involved. All hell breaks loose, basically, okay? That Arnold goes, the zombie that goes to try to get Hershel, his son Arnold, the ponytail one, he goes and just, boom, just tackles his ass, and he starts just smashing its face in, just punching it. No, you're not going to hit my daddy, you're not going to get my daddy. And as he's doing that, and then there's all this confusion going on and everything else, and nobody's got their guns out, and of course, nobody wants to shoot any of them because his oldest son is in the barn, and he may be cured someday. Well, all of a sudden, the oldest son actually comes shambling out, Shawn, and winds up biting Arnold, gets him from behind as he's on top of this other one nailing him. So now Arnold's down, right? As this nonsense and confusions happen, Maggie tries running in, and Glenn just fucking tackles her. He's like, no, boom, knocks her down. And then, so by that time now, Glenn is there, Rick gets there, people are pulling out their guns, Tyrese is there, and they're starting to pop these things. Because, like I said, remember, there's more than a dozen of them that are just coming shambling out now at this point. Arnold, like I said, his oldest son, Arnold, winds up getting bit. His previous oldest son that died, Shawn, is the one who bit him. And then also there is Lacey, who's the oldest daughter, the eldest daughter, older than Maggie. She winds up getting bit in all the confusion too. Hershel almost gets nailed. Ultimately what happens is Hershel winds up having to pull out his gun, or actually he asks someone for their gun and says, here, hand me your gun. And he goes and he says, I'm sorry, Shawn, boom, and sorry, Lacey, boom, sorry, Arnold, and he puts a bullet in each one of his dead kid's head. And then he goes and he turns the gun on himself, right? And he's just like, I'm sorry, and he's basically going to go and shoot himself. And Rick goes and knocks the gun out of his hand. Hershel, no! What the hell? So now there's all the zombies have been taken care of, but not without great loss. Two of Hershel's 5 children that are alive are now dead. His 2 eldest, and he'd already lost one. One child as it was. So certainly we see that Hershel was not in the right frame of mind with what he was doing. But also, I can understand where he's coming from. I don't know if I could put a bullet in one of my kids or my loved ones' heads, just because they had turned or some kind of disease infected them. They didn't seem to be normal. It's a torn thing. That's what's really good about this series, is that it makes you think and it makes you feel, and it makes you wonder, if I was in that situation, what would I do? So that's how the chapter ends up. Shortly after that, anyway, we wind up having a somber moment where they're kind of all sitting paying their respects at a grave site, and now Hershel's going to allow Rick and company to move into the barn. So I guess that's good for them, but like I said, it was just a terrible loss type of chapter. The chapter winds up ending, though, with Chris and Julie approaching Tyrese and saying, hey, listen, in the confusion yesterday, Mr. Grimes, Rick, didn't take the guns back because Tyrese had said you guys can do target practice, but I don't want you carrying yet. So they go to be honest and give them back and say, we don't want you to be mad at us, Dad. And he says, you know what, that's fine, just keep them, make sure you be smart and keep them holstered, though, and that they're always safe, okay, unless there's an emergency. So as they walk away, this little punk motherfucker, Chris, and I don't like him, I don't like him. First of all, he's banging that man's daughter, and, behind his back, and I don't like that shit. I don't have any daughters, but I have 3 younger sisters, and I don't know, I just never set right with me. But that's besides the point. They kind of go off, and he says, oh, okay, well, now we can do our plan, and she says, soon, and he goes, okay, we'll be ready. So now they got some kind of guns. Who knows what they're going to do, if these dingalings are going to go and run off somewhere by themselves now that they have weapons, or kill other people. I don't know what the deal is, but we'll find out hopefully in the next issue. So let me know what you think, Nation, in the comments down below. Feel free to give me a thumbs up, hit the like button if you think I deserve it, and certainly subscribe if you haven't done so already. We'll look forward to catching you in the next one, Nation. As always, thank you for watching, brothers and sisters. Be sure to subscribe and take a look at some of my other videos. Thanks. See you next time, Nation.